Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. Silver's price drop defies logic. Let's explore. In these uncertain economic times, it's frustrating for many of us to see silver continue to fall. In fact, as I record this video, silver is barely hanging on to $22 an ounce. All the metals are down today, but with inflation really rearing its ugly head and well established, it just doesn't make sense for many of us that gold and silver, especially silver, would continue to drop the way it is. Let's talk a little bit about why some of these things are happening. They're down on U.S. trading today, mainly because they were stymied as selling pressure accelerated after another U.S. inflation report ran hot. History shows that rising and problematic price inflation has been bullish for the hard asset metals. This doesn't really make any sense. Maybe traders today decided to focus more on the daily bearish elements of a firmer U.S. dollar and a drop in crude oil prices. However, the metals sold off before the U.S. dollar index saw most of its gains and before crude oil saw some of its losses. And so there's that sort of that very fine line that we're seeing in terms of the price. And another article talks about how silver is managing to get below the support of $21.90 in the bid price, and is moving towards the next support level at $21.50, while the U.S. dollar is losing some ground against a broad basket of currencies tracked by the IMF. And the U.S. dollar index is recently made an attempt to get to the test of the support of 96, but lost momentum and moved back above 96.25. In case the U.S. dollar index manages to settle above the level, we'll head towards the next resistance level at 96.5, which will be bearish for silver and gold price. A strong dollar is bearish for precious metals, as it makes them more expensive for buyers who have other currencies. And so the gold to silver ratio is trying to settle above recent highs near 81.2. In fact, as I record this video, they are trading at 80.79. And this attempt is successful. The gold to silver ratio would move towards the 82 level, which will obviously be bearish for silver. It's moving towards the support level at $21.50. And if it settles below that, it will head towards the next support level at $21.30. And so we are seeing movement of these metals, and a lot of it is due to increased consumer data. But why is there more consumer data so bullish this time around? Well, mainly it's because people are buying goods and services now before the prices go up later. And when I say later, I'm talking about within the month, because we know the CPI is at 6.8% now. But what does that translate to other goods and services? Food, oil, gas, which are outside of those measured areas. So inflation by some accounts is probably above 11 to 15%. And so people are wanting to buy goods and services and stockpile them before their dollar gets them less in a month. 1% less. Or maybe even worse. Maybe some people are fearing, so they're buying. And there's businesses that are looking to hire in order to sell these goods and services. This is why the employment rate is low. So the precious metal markets are essentially misinterpreting. Well, the markets in general are misinterpreting this stuff, and that's kind of what's going on here. And so sooner or later, I think it's going to snap back, and we're going to see silver prices start to make a move to the upside. But we'll see. I mean, there's some people that are now, when we see multiple days of lower prices for any given commodity, especially precious metals, what does that mean? It means that the analysts out there will start to predict bearish data, bearish prices for silver. And I believe we may start to see that soon, some of these predictions will come out for silver for next year as being lower than what we had previously thought. You remember my predictions. Of course, sometimes, I mentioned this, and some people don't realize that I'd mentioned it before. I made videos early in the year of $30 to $30 to $35 silver by the end of 2021. Well, we're almost halfway through the month now, and the price just keeps going down. And much lower, much less likely for it to hit the $29, $30 range that we saw earlier. $29 was the highest I think we saw earlier. But it never touched 30 this year. And so likely it's not going to happen, at least at the pace that we're going right now. But it's defying logic. But the thing is that looking at history and what has happened in the past when there's inflation is it takes a while sometimes for precious metals to catch up to that inflation. But I believe it will happen, and it could happen dramatically if things get much worse. If inflation were to tick up at a faster pace, let's say 2 to 3% a month, then I think you're going to start to see the precious metals come around, because we're almost in panic mode at that point if that occurs. But we don't know. A lot of things could happen. The dollar is a very resilient currency, especially compared to the other currencies out there. But that's not saying much because of the volatility and the weakness of other currencies. Being the top dog in the world's reserve currencies, the dollar being traded amongst other nations around the world, 60%, it goes to show you that this dollar has some staying power and could have some for quite some time, leaving them the luxury of being able to really plan out this new Fed coin or the new CBDC, the central bank digital currency, and the new dollar, what that new dollar will look like. It'll be very interesting to find out and see how that transpires. But all we can do is just continue to press on and consider this a buying opportunity if the premiums aren't too high anyway. But, that's the thing. Supply chains are still a problem, and you're still paying a lot more than spot price for your silver these days, especially for Eagles. Eagles are really up there in price, and so those are things you have to consider. Eagles, generic rounds, the days of 69 cents above spot are gone. We live in a new age now with premiums and alike, and it's trickling back through all levels of the supply chain for precious metals, from blanks to refining, all of it. Fuel costs have gone up across the board, and so those premiums, essentially, they stack up. I mean, you're paying a lot more for your product, and especially a product in high demand like Eagles, you're going to see certainly a lot more of this occur and happen as we press forward into 2022. So in a sense, it doesn't matter where silver goes in 2022. I believe that the premiums will not go down as much, and we are going to be paying a higher percentage of premiums in 2022 than we did in 2021. I really believe that, because I think as prices go down, most of us see that as a buying opportunity, and we still hold on to the hope that silver is going to at least catch up with inflation. It certainly didn't in 2021. Through the whole course of the year, it did not. But it just depends on when you started buying. Again, you can pick any two dates and make and tell the story with those two dates of where silver is. But if you take into account the calendar year for 2021, silver did not do too well. But if you take into account the last 5 years, silver is up. And it's anything above $20 for silver is considered a good thing. And when you consider the silver that you buy, you take one of these silver eagles, for instance, and you sell it back to your local coin shop, they are going to give you more than spot for it. Most normal coin dealers would, at least. So that is something to hang on to. And that, speaking of hanging on, it's during these times where if you're not in buying mode or you're nervous about the markets, the last thing you should do is sell, unless you absolutely have to. Hold on. Silver's falling Silver's price is defying logic. But you know what? The best thing we can do is to be logical in our holdings of our precious metals, because we are stuck with the premiums we pay for these metals, and we're going to lose out if we go to sell them. And then their spot price, and we're losing out on that too, to a point. So hang on to them as long as you can. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe!